Hey guys, this is continuing on the Is It Good series where I take competitive players and I look at their builds in competitive games, the games that mattered the most. This is the grand finals of the Heroic Division of Nexus Gaming series. I'm looking at Valamar's Chen. Is it good? Valamar is a soul lane player that has played on a variety of competitive teams in Open Division as well as in different divisions among NGS and Heroes Lounge. Now, Valamar is known for playing Soul Lane, but he is particularly known for playing Chen. And not just Chen, but he plays Chen in a non-meta build. So the meta build that we're familiar with is going Eye of the Tiger into usually Accumulating Flames, into Brewmaster's Balance or Elusive Brawler, followed up by Storm, Earth, and Fire, followed up by Ring of Fire, followed up by Combo Strikes, into Elemental Conduit. And that is the build that we're most familiar with ever since Chen got his rework. However, Valamar plays Chen a little bit differently. So we're going to be talking about the playstyle first, then we'll be going into the build, and we'll be going into how that playstyle works for the early, mid, and late portions of the game. In the early portion of the game, he plays a rather safe Chen. He drinks for the majority of the time to mitigate the damage of the enemy laner, trying to stay very efficient. He doesn't really push out the lane too much. He just tries to freeze the lane so that it stays on his side of the battlefield. Level 1, he takes Storm Stout Secret Recipe, a talent that I've called really bad, and I'm going to regret that this video. But whatever. I'm going to eat my words because I'm wrong just like a lot of other people, and it happens. But I at least am going to admit that I was wrong in this case. Now, it has been buffed a few times, but I thought it needed to get up to 5% before it was good. He proves a little bit differently. So, he plays pretty safe, but I mean, overall, Dude Abides, who's playing the Malthael, is playing pretty strong against him and is still able to get out of a three-man gank, and Valamar really was struggling against him. So the early portions of the game for Chen is pretty much just going to be play safe in this particular build. The way that Valamar plays, and the reason that he takes Storm Stout Secret Recipe, is that he plays the in and out playstyle that I've talked about before. Go in when you have abilities, go out when you don't. He plays that to a T. He goes in, he uses all abilities, he gets out. He goes in, he uses all abilities, he gets out. And so he pretty much only goes in to gain 10% of his life. Not 10.5, but you know what I mean. 10% of his life. Then he gets out. And then he goes in, he gains 10%, he gets out. And he uses Stagger to mitigate the amount of damage that he's taking. And then he drinks to then stop all of that damage. So he essentially is going in, healing for 10%, taking none of his health in damage, and then gaining more back. And he does this over and over and over, and it's slowly whittling down the opponent's mana and doing a slight amount of damage. So against someone like a Malthael, that damage is negligible. But against someone that maybe doesn't have as much sustain, like an Artanis, that damage will add up. Against Malthael, he's just going to eventually lower Malthael's mana. Now, Malthael's roaming, and he's not, so creates a little bit of a struggle for them. But we do see, again, Accumulating Flame being picked up. Now, they've been buffing Withering Flames a lot, and this talent is getting very, very good. But against this particular team comp, he doesn't really see the value in that. He'd rather go Accumulating Flames. Now, this increases the damage of your Ignite, while it also makes it where basic attacks against the enemy hero who are ignited increases duration. So, the heal of Storm Stout Secret Recipe only hits the initial time. It doesn't hit for the damage over times. If it said something different where it was like, oh, every time you dealt damage, then you heal, then it might be better. But having it only basic abilities is only 3.5, 7, and then 10.5. So he goes in for the flank, body blocks, takes a bit of damage, uses his stagger to mitigate some of this damage, and then as he gets away from the fight, he's going to drink to mitigate the amount of stagger damage that he's currently taking. And this is a pretty common playstyle for Chen. Go in, take damage, mitigate it with stagger, and then drink it back. Nothing too special. But what makes Valamar's Chen unique, and why is it so terrifying to other Grandmaster players? Because Valamar actually has an upward of a 70% win rate depending on the season with Chen, and he always plays this type of playstyle. Level 7, he takes Elusive Brawler. There are a lot of reasons why this talent is picked up, but primarily it's just a very good talent for dealing with a lot of different people. But one of the tricks that he does a few times in this game, I probably won't call it out too much, I did pick this game in particular because I saw him do it, is he did it against Malthael to prevent Malthael from getting the mark on him. And because he prevented the mark from getting put on him, then Malthael wasn't able to do any damage to him. So you can use it for tricks like that, and it can be very, very effective. So he continues doing damage, auto-attacking, doing more damage, slowing, and then he drinks to get his energy back, to get a shield going, and continues on forward. He drinks once again, decides when he wants to go back in. He goes straight for their backline, and he's going to zone out Got Filth, which is a ranged assassin player in Grandmasters, an amazing player. He's pretty much just going to push back Got Filth as much as he can and zone out their backline, as his team's going to be able to win the rest of this objective. He goes in, he slows their team a little bit, realizes that their whole team's there. He's going to use Stagger to mitigate a lot of this damage, but he's going to take more damage than he can honestly heal through. So he's going to try to drink, but he's definitely going to die here. With that, that is going to be the objective turning over to Red Team. And we'll fast forward through this death. This game is going to be a longer one, so we will be fast forwarding through a few of these. And so the early portion of this build, I find a little bit weaker than the other builds. I do want to also bring up, when I did the 1 versus 1 tournament, Valamar on Chen did get second place, I believe. So even in the early game, he does play really well. But I don't think he went this build in the 1v1 tournament. So he's going a build that's not really relying on winning the 1v1. He's going a build that's going to bring something else to the game. And usually if you go a build that loses the 1v1, then you need a build that's going to be heavy on the team fight. And that's what we're going to really decide. But look at this disruption. Everyone on the team's trying to deal with him, and they can't do anything. He just keeps jumping on them left and right, dealing with just about everyone, forcing them all to spread out. And they did so much damage to him, and he's still sitting at half health. So it's like they didn't actually do anything. That's going to be a kill from CPX. And now Valamar is going to go back to soaking lanes. Wandering Keg is the talent that he picks up at level 10, which is different from the competitive build, which normally takes Storm, Earth, and Fire. Competitive players have been taking Storm, Earth, and Fire because they can mitigate a huge portion of damage, then switch to Storm, Earth, and Fire and guarantee one root, allowing their team to kill whatever gets rooted. But in fights that get a little bit more chaotic and people that are a little bit more prepared for that, Keg is a very interesting talent because if you're good at it, you can set up a fight and break them so far away from their team that it's like you're using Gorge without needing to draft a Stitches, which Stitches is a rather weak hero at the moment. Or at least off meta. And we'll have another video for Stitches coming out soon. And again, I don't know the order that I'm bringing these videos out. I'm recording a bunch on a free day, but scheduling them out a little bit. But I believe the Stitches video is going to be coming out later. But yeah, so now he's going to go up to the enemy team, and he is going to see if he can't set up for a good fight for his team, as the enemies are now... essentially, they were setting up for a fight. He showed up. They walked away. And Barrel is going to be a very important piece of winning this game. If they win. You don't know. I actually don't remember. This game, I casted this game, but it's been a little while. And my replays don't show who wins. And someone clicked the button so it doesn't show up in match history. So I actually don't know. It's a 27-minute game. I feel like none of us won. Yeah. All right. We're going to fast forward up to level 13. The double soaking is not very fun to watch, and it's a playstyle that we don't need to get too much into. You're going to see this from every solo laner. There's the first barrel being used. It was a flanking barrel, and he brings the Malthael right back into his team, getting one kill on the Malthael that wouldn't have been picked up without that. That gets their team to level 13s first, and that level 13 lead could allow them to invade, but there's nothing really worth invading because support camp's not up, their turret camps aren't up, so nothing really worth it for there. This is one of my favorite talents that someone actually told me that it wasn't a very good talent, and I watched the pro scene, and the pro scene was using Ring of Fire. So I was like, okay, maybe it's not a good talent, but I loved enough to share, and that's probably because I'm a support main at heart, and having the ability to support on a solo laner is cool. And might be one of the reasons why I like Valamar's Chen so much, is that it's such a cool play style. That you get to be super disruptive, and you don't play to get kills other than maybe getting a barrel here and there. You're playing to be the most disruptive and annoying person you've ever seen, and then you get picks. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of like Leoric, where you get picks, and that was a barrel. He jumped to the other side to barrel, but it appeared that when he jumped to the other side where he was going to go body block, the body block was canceled by Fear the Reaper, which allows you to pass through units for 4 seconds. So he's probably going to learn very quickly that he can't use the barrel to take out a Malthael that's prepared for it. He's going to have to save the barrel to take out like ETC or someone else. But enough to share is a really cool thing. It's like you're a Leoric, except for you can get picks. I mean, both Leoric and Chen both get picks, but you, instead of mitigating the enemy's damage, you are increasing your team survivability. So I don't know. It's a cool playstyle for me, I think. So he's trying to get level 16s for his team. Second objective of the game, he's focusing on soaking, and he's going to be using fire. He does not have the Ring of Fire, which is a talent that a lot of people in the competitive scene were using to increase their wave clear. He doesn't have that, so double soaking is a little bit trickier for him. It's still possible, but it's a little bit trickier. And so it's taking him longer. He still has to drink to get his energy back. He's not using it to give shields to anything because it doesn't give shields to minions. So he's able to get that soak, and now he's going back down. He wants to get 16s. His team's going to get 16s first, so he tells his team, hey, back off for a little bit. Let's get 16s, and then we'll come back for the objective later. The enemies aren't even worrying about the objective right now because they're like, you know what? Hey, they're walking away. Let's go get this support camp. So the enemies played that out really well. And you got to remember, this is essentially 5 Grandmasters versus 5 Grandmasters. So they're not going to let the other one get an easy strategy, you know? One has a plan, they're going to predict it, and they're going to play around it. Level 16, Combo Strikes is picked up. This is another one that I've been a little curious about on why he takes this talent as opposed to other talents. And honestly, I think it's just mainly the ability for him to dive in the backline after the fight's gone a little long and be able to just take someone out really quickly. I think for his playstyle of going in and out and ability based, the other talents would be better. But I'm sure he's tested this and figured out that Combo Strikes just works. And so this is essentially his build. We'll talk about the level 20 when we get there. But overall, he plays a very safe build. So there's a mosh pit. He jumps right before the mosh pit, goes unstoppable, and gets Quantum out of the fight. With Malfurion completely out of the fight and Combo Strikes available for him to quickly do crit damage, he's able to take out Malfurion that he isolated, and now he can rejoin the fight with his team. Now, the Lucio was taken out, so they won't have a healer for this next fight, but he does still have shields, and the Protector can also give shields as well. They could go for mid to take a quick fort, but they won't have it available to go down to bot and take the fountain. And we know the strategy of taking the fountain down at bottom lane allows it to be a little bit easier for your team to win the next objective. In this case, he's going to zone out the ETC using Combo Strikes to see if he can't get him a little bit lower before he gets to safety. And they were able to take out the fountain. Now they are just at the point where they need to wait till the next objective and try to just stay up on experience. But as Chen and this playstyle, he still has the capability of picking someone that's out of position by quickly using a barrel, and that's something that we will be seeing over the next 10 minutes. I'm going to fast forward just a little bit, only to speed past a couple little tricky spots. He uses time trap. Everyone's trying to do anything to try to save it. And time traps are actually one of the few ways that barrel is countered in this game. Which is kind of crazy because if you start playing against Valamar, it feels like there's no counter to barrel. If he lands a Q, somebody dies almost every time that he has barrel up. And that's a really bad challenge to have to deal with, is like, if that barrel goes out, you lose. So you need to find ways to deal with it. And surprisingly, the trap on Chromie was one way that this team decided to answer it. They would time trap the barrel as it went out, and then they had time to reposition before the barrel would hit anyone. It's really interesting. So again, he's focusing on just double soaking. His team can do whatever they want to as long as he's double soaking. And in this situation, these are the fights that he loves. Like, around camps that people are trying to get something, not only can he give shields to his entire team, but he can also use barrel to get kills. And there we go. This is what I was talking about. They use time traps to stop barrel from getting kills. And it works pretty effectively. So they have to counter Chen in some way, and that's the way that they decide to counter him. But is that going to be enough? Because they're going to have to always have a time trap in the right position, and that's going to be ETC dead. The enemy team does pick up a support camp from ETC, and then they are still able to steal a turret. I believe they had to use a turret for that, though. So, pros and cons. Now, this is another thing that I love about Chen, and I love about Valamar's Chen. He just tanks keeps. Whenever they get a kill, he just tanks a keep, and they'll just immediately go and get something. And even if he's not the one tanking, he still gives the shield so that whoever is tanking doesn't take any damage. It's a really cool playstyle that allows them to go really, really aggressive. I apologize, it's my notification. Let me turn off Facebook. I had to turn it on for work. But yeah, so that's another thing that's really cool. It's like whenever they get a kill, he just immediately walks up to the keep or the core or whatever he's there, and he's just like, let's just push. He gives huge shields to his team. His team can deal with just about anything, and they just walk away, getting a free fort. So they got 2 free forts, even though they didn't get much done with that objective. They just walked up, got 2 free forts by killing 1 person on the enemy team. At level 20, he takes Purifying Brew. Casting Fortifying Brew grants Unstoppable for 1.5 seconds. This is going to make it to where he can give that shield to his team with no downside. If people throw the damage at him, he continues giving shields to himself and his team. And there's nothing that anyone can do about it. If they try to overwhelm him with damage, he pops Elusive Brawler while drinking, and he's still safe. So he can just continue getting that huge shields, unstoppable, eating everything, and just going for it. Now, you gain that 1.5 seconds of unstoppable even if you don't drink for the full 1.5 seconds. So there's been a couple times that he will use the Purifying Brew to trigger unstoppable, and then he'll immediately jump through a CC and get a kill. But this is it. I mean, he uses his trait to heal for his team, and then he uses barrel. Barrel is going to set up the kill onto Chromie that is going to lead them to essentially be able to take something major. So they take the Chromie. Now, if the Garrosh wouldn't have died there, it would have been much different. Combo strikes likely could have led to the kill on Quantum, but I don't think that he really wanted to worry about that. And so right here, he's going to grab this globe, heal for his team, or at least give shields for his team, so that they can be a little bit more aggressive. That wins the objective for his team. And they're just sitting at the moment, and they're sitting pretty because these huge shields are available. It's kind of like the old Tassadar playstyle, honestly. Like, old Tassadar used to give shields to your entire team, and they all were so tanky that it was hard to kill them with burst. So we switched into a meta that was all sustained damage, and it makes me feel like this could almost create that meta again of once you get 13, people can't rely on burst anymore. They have to rely on sustained. So he's just keeping the Li Ming very tanky, but at the same time, without the Garrosh, they can't play too aggressive here. But they can use the barrel defensively at this point to get everyone away so that his team can get away. He may end up dying, though, but they get Due to Bide so low. He uses the Unstoppable in the drink as well as his stagger to stay alive. Stagger damage is getting really, really close to killing him, so then he's going to use his drink to get his shield back up, and they're good. So they were able to pick off 2 things really quickly. Malthael did use his No One Can Stop Death to return, which is his level 20 talent. And at this point of the playstyle with Chen, you just want to do aggressive barrels almost every time that the enemies are out of position. So mid-game, aggressive barrels, late-game, aggressive barrels, early game, play safe, and I would say post-level 13, try to keep your team alive. That's the playstyle you're looking for. Keep your team alive, look for picks. And while you're not looking for picks, or while your keg is down, you pretty much just use trait. You use trait, you keep your whole team alive, you get a pick with barrel. It's, again, surprisingly straightforward playstyle that Valamar has kind of dominated on. Like, this is something that I don't see a lot of other Chens playing this way. It's an older playstyle of Chen for sure, that he's just practiced and has it down. It still works. He gives temporary shields to people and immediately starts working on the camp. He knew that the fountain would heal the rest of Li Ming's health, so he decided to essentially just get them shielded enough to where he could continue speeding up the camp. If we wanted to look at some of the stats here, we can see that as far as hero damage goes, it's not too high. He is topping the experience contributed, as he has been double soaking for his team. But his hero damage is not crazy. I mean, he has 2 people on his team that are higher hero damage. But his ability to set up fights it's just crazy. Look at how he's just forcing these fights. Now, his team got scared away because there was a arrow that went out by Sylvanas, but the barrel, 50-second cooldown. So if that was the only ultimate used, he's just going to be able to quickly use another barrel again and be able to set up more fights. So he's going to do a decent amount of damage, try to clear up these camps a little bit. His team seems to be hiding, so I think they're trying to see if the enemies were going to ambush, and they were just going to counter ambush. But once again, we can go for a flanking barrel once his team gets all grouped up, or just a straightforward, once again, his normal play style, giving his team shields, waiting for the enemies to go out of position, and then going for a barrel. We're going to fast forward just a little bit as this next objective is approaching. He stays near the back line almost the entire time. You can see him near the Lucio as well as near the Rainer. He tries to avoid getting moshed by them, but at the same time, if he sees the ETC slide in, he'll usually jump away. Right here, this is a great ult. He immediately barrels as the mosh goes out. He waits until the mosh sound goes off so that the full cooldown goes on that. But his team ends up getting dropped anyways, or at least the Garrosh gets dropped anyways, and he goes back to fighting. He's going to give some shields, and we're going to be approaching the end of this game. There's 4 minutes left in this game. And we are looking at a really, really rough one. So he's going to walk off. He doesn't want to just get dropped by the enemy team, but at the same time, he still wanted to channel as much as he possibly could. And this is something that you can do, is you can contest the point on the side that's safe, and then just kind of hang out. And that's something that it's really recommended. If you can safely contest, you should probably try to contest. If you're going to die, you normally want to just wait for your team to show up. Because you would rather fight, instead of fighting a 4 versus 5 and then losing, and then a 1 versus 5 and then losing, and then a 4 versus 5 and losing, it's better to just wait out so you can fight a 5 versus 5 while the enemies still haven't gotten all of their resources yet from the previous fight, and you guys have. So that's really the best bet. Be careful about flanking with Chen, because when you jump in with your Q, you're going to be jumping behind them every time. So what happens is, let's say that he wasn't in barrel right now and he jumped, he would jump right here. Well, then if he barrels, he's going to knock her in this direction, which isn't necessarily towards his team. So normally when you're playing Chen, you want to be at this angle, jump over them, and then barrel to send them back into your team. And that's the best way that you want to try to do an engage. If you're flanking on Chen, the only time you want to do this is when you are flanking someone that's in the back, so that you can barrel and push their front line into the team. And that's exactly what he did this time, but I wanted to explain that because people are going to learn off of this play style, and I want you to know his decisions when he's making these barrel plays, so you don't make the same play but for a different decision. So when you're making a flanking play, make sure that you're flanking the last person if you're planning on barreling someone, because you need to barrel their front line back in, and that's exactly what happened. They barreled the Malthael. He used Unstoppable and passed through units and then was able to get out alive, but it did require the Malthael to pop all of his cooldowns to be able to do that. So now he's giving shields to everyone on his team, making it easy for them to survive the damage that's being thrown out. And they can safely deal damage to the enemy protector while they have those huge shields on them. Once again, huge shields are being given. He's doing a lot of damage to Got Filth. He's going to start mitigating the damage with Stagger. And he doesn't even do that. He just mitigates the damage with the shield. And after all that, he will have his keg up very soon, allowing them to follow up with another fight if they need to. And we saw it once again. That was a Chromie trap that was able to stop the barrel. It's a great counter for what tools they have available. If you're trying to counter Chen's barrel, the best way is to really make sure that you're the ones forcing fights. So something like a Leoric, where you can always force a fight within Tomb and then just press your E. That's really difficult for Chen to deal with. Yes, he can use barrel to try to push everyone away, but that's not going to be the best answer when a lot of the people are just going to be dropped. So once again, he uses his stagger to mitigate the damage before he gets hit by Last Rite, so he takes less damage. Nothing too crazy. And while they've been defending, they were able to take out 2 keeps just because of the catapults they had from the pressure that he's applied earlier in this game. From winning those objectives, the first 2 objectives. So this entire objective, they were able to hold off by simply using that AoE shield that he had. And again, sometimes I like to show these games that are really close, because I feel like you learn a little bit more when you see a game that's like really close rather than a game that's an absolute stomp. But I find that the games that are absolute stomps are the games people are more likely to copy the builds on. This is a very competitive build, and it's one of those that that's just interesting, honestly. So we are 1 minute from this game closing out. It's the next fight will be the difference between who wins this game. And he's popped his stagger already. He's already popped his elusive brawler, but guess what? He still has his barrel. He's able to disrupt their team so that during the time that there's silence, the silence doesn't get any value. He then uses his shield to keep everyone alive through all of the burst, and now he's going to head straight to core. What can he do on core? He can give everyone huge shields so they can take the damage from the core. They can spread out, and this will be game. So, this is Valamar's Chen. Is it good? The playstyle and the build for Valamar's Chen is very good, but I will point out that I think that the standard meta build may be better for carrying in games, while this build is much better in competitive. I think this build is one that is great for people who like to play supportive for their team, and also great for people who are very patient, people who will wait for the right opportunities to get a good barrel off, and people that like combos. Those are the people that will like this build. Overall, it is a good build, and his playstyle is very, very good. He's one of the best Chen players in North America. Let's talk a little bit about the build one more time so that we can go back through it. We have Storm Stout Secret Recipe. This is for his in and out playstyle. He tends to go in and then immediately use Wandering Keg. It allows him to beat some of the more strange matchups that he normally wouldn't beat. But I do wonder if it would lose to other matchups, which is why he might switch to Eye of the Tiger. I am not sure. I haven't been able to talk to Valamar about that. Accumulating Flame, he picks up, so he could be a little bit more aggressive during fights. Elusive Brawler, he picks up in most games, and he does use it in special scenarios to mitigate auto attacks on heroes that need auto attacks to activate things. Wandering Keg, he picks up almost every single game. That is his bread and butter to this entire build. Every 50 seconds, he can lead to a kill. Or at least add enough disruption during a fight to make a difference. Enough to Share is another major piece of this build. Allows him to stay alive and his team to stay alive long enough for him to find a pick. Then he goes Combo Strike, so that when he pulls someone out of the team fight, he can solo kill them without needing the team to help him out during that kill. We saw this happen with Malfurion a few times, where he pulled Malfurion away from the entire fight, killed Malfurion very quickly with Combo Strikes, and then immediately came back to his team, gave them shields so that they could win the rest of the fights. And finally, Purifying Brew allows him to survive the slide from ETC, so he can jump away before the mosh, or so that he can barrel before the mosh goes off. All of these are how he created this build and why he picked this particular build. Is it good? Yes, it's good. Is it the best build for Storm League? I'm not sure, but it sure is fun to watch. Thank you guys so much, and feel free to check out my other videos, especially the other Is It Good series videos, which I am working very hard to get these out to teach playstyles of heroes that I might not necessarily have made a video on in the past, or at least recently. Thank you again.